This is the Enrichment Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Enrichment Sports Source. Very happy to have you with us today. We have a packed show as we kind of give our midterm grades to the Vols. We talk about a lot of stuff that's going on when it comes to Tennessee football. Let's get it started. First segment of our show brought to you by our good friends at Enrichment Federal Credit Union. Car buyers, you need to finance with Enrichment Federal Credit Union. Their auto rates start as low as 1.99% fixed APR on all 2009 through 2013 models with up to 66 months to repay. And if you're financed through another lender, it's not too late to switch. In fact, move your car loan to Enrichment Federal Credit Union. You can get the same deal plus up to $200 back in cash. 8 Knoxville area locations for you to drop in and talk to the representatives of Enrichment Federal Credit Union. I suggest you do it. It's the best way to bank in all of East Tennessee. All right, here with the media guys. Well, it's going to be unusual today without the revolving door of people moving in and off the set. Jimmy Himes from 990 The Sports Animal, thanks.
Good to be here.
Bob Hodge, freelance writer, Knoxville News Sentinel, thanks.
Good to be here.
Mike Strange, columnist, writer for the Knoxville News Sentinel, thanks.
I'll try to play every snap. I'm not used to it,
That's
so
good.
I don't know how I'm going to do in the fourth quarter of the show.
Excellent. It's kind of like UT's depth. All right. Before we start breaking down the 2013 Volunteers, I wanted to address something that I think may calm some nerves out there.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, Tennessee fans, like all fans, you tend to focus on your team's issues. Everything that happens to your team is worse than anything that happens to anybody else's team. There's this panic mode that this Tennessee rebuilding project has just gone on longer than anyone else. Not exactly, and we want to show you this. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. The key message to take from all this, you are not alone. If you think Tennessee's been walking through the wasteland by themselves, they haven't been. Look here, 2 9-win seasons from 2005 through 2012, all right? Now you're into the 2013 season, but 2 9-win seasons in 8. 5 non-winning seasons in 8. During that time, you've had a number of coaches, obviously. Philip Fulmer, you had Lane Kiffin's little drop over, you had Derek Dooley, now you've got Butch Jones. But Tennessee's rebuilding project looks a whole lot like Alabama's. People forget this. They only had 2 9-win seasons from 2000 through 2007. That's a run of 8 seasons. They had 4 non-winning seasons in 8, not Tennessee's 5, but still, that's right here in the SEC. That is your big rival that everyone says now Alabama has to, they get to play that patsy Tennessee. Wasn't that long ago that Alabama was the patsy. You see their coaching turnover, Mike Dubose, Dennis Franchione, Mike Shula, and then Nick Saban fixed it all, of course. This goes on outside the SEC as well. Look at Oklahoma. They had 2 9-win seasons in 11 years, from 1989 through 1999. 5 non-winning seasons in 11 years. Once again, look at all the coaches. Barry Switzer left, Gary Gibbs, Howard Schnellenberger, whose name was longer than his tenure, John Blake, Bob Stoops came in and fixed it. Not just Oklahoma, it gets worse. Southern Cal, think about the money, think about the recruiting base, and yet 1 9-win season from 1990 through 2001. That's a run of 12 years. 5 non-winning seasons in 12 years. Their coaches, Larry Smith, John Robinson, Paul. You're starting to figure out a theme here. Turnover. All right. Southern Cal, now you go to LSU. People forget how long this one, 2 9-win seasons from 1988 through 2000, a run of 13 years. 8 non-winning seasons in 13 years. You think about how good LSU is now and how great that recruiting base is. They've had their issues, and you see the coaches, Mike Archer, Curly Hallman, Jerry DiNardo, and Nick Saban fixed them too. I think the trick for Tennessee is to go get Nick Saban. And then you move on, there's another one to look at, Texas. That might be the best program in the country if you could land it. In terms of recruiting base, cash, they had 2 9-win seasons from 84 through 97. That's a run of 14 years. 6 non-winning seasons in 14. You look at their coaches, again, a number of them. Akers, McWilliams, Makovic. Mac Brown fixed it, although it looks like it's almost broken again. Guys, the point being, Tennessee is not experiencing anything that is unique. Sometimes when you get into these holes, it's tough to get out of them. Mm-hmm. They're certainly not the only program to go that way. But my question for you is, any of those numbers surprise you at all? I mean, does it seem as a Tennessee, well, Bob, you're a fan. So did you know those numbers?
From the other programs?
Yes.
No, as a matter of fact, you tend to forget those numbers because when they come back, You go, well, they were good from 1960 to 1985. Well, there's 2013 there. They've always been good. No, I totally forgotten those numbers, and I think the key there is the 2 9-win seasons. Once you get over the 2 9-win seasons, then
back.
something good can happen to you at some point. But no, I think that's very surprising.
Well, I wonder if you hope that Tennessee fans will look at that and say, okay, so we're not the only ones in this boat. My question, though, every one of those had 4 or 5 coaches. Now, you could make the clear argument that you had 4 or 5 coaches because you weren't winning. I wonder, though, how much did changing coaches impact that cycle of not winning? Jimmy, I'll start with you.
Well, it certainly has an impact, but the reason you're changing is those coaches aren't getting it done. So to me, it has more to do with the coaches than it is the changing of the coaches. Now, you do have an exceptional situation like Kiffin leaving after 1 year. I'm not sure how many of those others left or were fired at the other programs that you mentioned. Texas is the one that surprised me the most. I was pretty much aware of the others, but Texas, I didn't realize it was that kind of a streak for them. But I think a lot of it goes back to you get rid of the coach. It goes back to the impatience, too.
Which is getting worse now.
It used to be 5 years, then it was 4, now it's 3. There have been some coaches fired after 2. So I think the impatience there has also contributed to that.
Mike Strange, your thoughts on the issues that have faced Tennessee so far and the issues you saw there at other schools? Do you see any similarities?
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, they're all marquee programs, for one thing. But when you look at Southern Cal, Texas, LSU to some extent, even Alabama, all those to me have better recruiting bases than Tennessee does, and yet it still happened to them. Oklahoma. I don't think any of those schools has to recruit nationally like Tennessee does.
Yeah. I wonder, is there anything at this point, we've been through this a million times. I think they've got the right guy. I could be wrong on that. I didn't say that about the last guy. I think they got the right guy this time. But looking back, looking at all those numbers, do you think you're kind of exiting the tunnel at this point in terms of troubles inside the athletic department, coaching fairs, the turntable of coaches? Are you finally getting off that thing?
I really think that to be able to make that declaration is going to be more than just wins and losses. I mean, let's say Tennessee goes 7-5 this season, goes to a better bowl game than anybody expected. The things that has hampered Tennessee, so much of it has been away from the field and away from the scoreboard. I think you're going to have to take 2 or 3 years, one, to get Tennessee, Butch Jones, get them where you want to go, but you're going to have to get a couple or 3 years removed from the stuff that went on in the administration office too, before you feel settled down, because it seems like just about every time you're saying, are the clouds parting? And I think we even talked about that on the show.
Summer, yeah.
And then all of a sudden clouds come back. You've got the stuff going about the girls that went over to South Carolina comes back to haunt you. You've got players that were taking money from an agent comes back to haunt you. So I think all those things you're going to have to be 2 or 3 years removed. Forget winning and losing. Just let that stuff go away.
I think they're in the right direction, I think. We will know soon. But the reason I think that is not just a number of things that he's done with getting the former players back in the program and touching all the right bases. I think that the recruiting is what is going to get him back there. If you look at what they've done so far, okay, so they end up losing a receiver that decommits and they go out and get one of the best junior college offensive linemen in the country. There are a couple of other receivers that I think they will get to replace Lauderdale. So I think the recruiting is the huge key, and this staff is recruited better than I actually thought it would. I wouldn't have thought they'd have a top 2 or 3 class at this point with 25 commitments.
That's a perfect lead in. We will go in the next segment and talk about Butch Jones' most important job this year. You can kind of guess what it is. May not be winning games on the field, but winning recruits. We'll talk about it. Come on back in the Richmond Sports Source.